The black box for future investigators looking into the collapse of the West. This is the Daniel Natal Show. I was online, and a young man was asking how to respond to his father, who had said that allowing the government to medically experiment on you was every American's patriotic duty. I responded to him as follows. Tell your dad that any discussion of the body might take us into a discussion of the body politic. Toward that end, let us start by saying that there's a difference between a republic and a democracy. Aristotle said that every form of government has its decayed state. There are three main forms of government: monarchy, aristocracy, and republic. These decay into tyranny, oligarchy, and democracy. In a republic, individual rights are respected and defended. In a democracy, mob rule prevails, and the collective is stressed. As we shift away from a republic to a democracy, you'll have people scorning the protection of individual rights. They won't recognize them. Despite the fact that Thomas Jefferson said that the only legitimate function of government was protecting individual rights. That was, of course, the logic of a republic. Modern people will dismiss this out of hand, mouthing phrases like individual rights are selfish and for sociopaths, it's in the public interest, or the greatest good for the greatest number. These phrases come from the teachings of Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill in the early 1800s in England. They advocated for a school of philosophy that they called utilitarianism. Interestingly, philosopher Immanuel Kant used the term utilitarian for the opposite of ethical. Bentham used the term utilitarianism to mean that which is useful, and he sees its end goal as providing the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Citing Bentham's ideas as being rooted in hedonism, Alistair MacIntyre, in A Short History of Ethics, comments, concepts like pleasure and happiness are stretched and extended in all directions until they are simply used to name whatever men aim at. By this extension, they become useless for evaluative and moral purposes. An example is the choice between devoting resources to health services or devoting them to penal reform. But it is necessary to emphasize that the utilitarian advocacy of the criterion of public happiness is not only a mistake, the concept of happiness is also morally dangerous. For the concept of the greatest happiness for the greatest number could be used to defend any paternalistic or totalitarian society, in which the price paid for happiness is the freedom of the individuals in that society to make their own choices. In Principles of Biomedical Ethics, the authors, Childress and Beauchamp, seem to agree with Alistair MacIntyre and Immanuel Kant that utilitarianism is unethical. They write, if a surgeon, for example, could save 2 innocent lives by killing a prisoner on death row to retrieve his heart and liver for transplantation, this outcome of saving 2 lives would have the highest utility under the circumstances, but the surgeon's action would be morally indefensible. A claim that the collective will benefit if we just sacrifice the individual is the very definition of unethical. As we mentioned before, Thomas Jefferson said that the only legitimate purpose of government is to protect individual rights, not collective rights in a paternalistic and totalitarian society. Jefferson's thoughts on these matters were shaped by 17th century legal scholar Hugo Grotius. According to Grotius, justice deals not with communal affairs, but with those peculiar to the individual. In a digression, it reminds me of something that happened to me yesterday. I glanced at a phrase that said the Weimar Republic, and I misread it and thought that it said the Walmart Republic. I say this because collectivists assume that corporations like Walmart have veto power over the U.S. Constitution. America might be said to be the Walmart Republic now. This point was made recently in an interaction at a big box store when conservative former child star Rick Schroeder had a quarrel with a collectivist.
What's your name?
My name is Jason.
And what do you do here?
I'm a supervisor, front-end supervisor.
And why aren't you letting me in?
Because in the state of California and the county of Los Angeles, there has been and Costco, there's been no change
Yes,
to our
there has
mask
been.
policy. Not in the state of California or in the county of
Didn't you
Los
see the news?
Angeles.
You didn't see the news.
Absolutely.
Nationwide Costco has said you don't need to wear a mask.
Actually, that's not accurate.
What is accurate?
So what is accurate is that Costco always goes above and beyond when following the law, and the mandate in California has not changed. There does seem to be the possibility that in June, by mid-June, that's a date that California, I know,
If
is
they
looking
allow
at.
us, if they grant us that, our kings, the people in power, you're going to listen to these people?
Well, I know
they've destroyed our economy.
Well,
they're
sir, they're
destroying our
evaluating.
culture. They're destroying our state.
Long story short, it is not patriotism in a republic to join those who scorn individual rights and lobby for the collective. Medical martial law is not patriotism. Our founders believed more in live free or die. These are the values for which they fought, not a paternalistic and totalitarian society run by unelected technocrats. They did not believe that collective rights superseded individual rights, not even when healthcare is invoked as an excuse. 9/10 of human rights are based on property rights, with your body being your own property. No one gets to transgress that without your will or consent. The aforementioned Hugo Grotius, who said that justice consists on an individual basis, not a collective basis, was one of the earliest articulators of human rights. Just like Richard Overton, who in 1646 wrote, "To every individual in nature is given an individual property by nature, not to be invaded or usurped by any. For everyone as he is himself, so he has a self-propriety, else he could not be himself. And of this, no second may presume to deprive any of without manifest violation and affront to the very principles of nature and of the rules of equity and justice between man and man." In other words, your body is your property, and no one has a right to transgress that, not even in the name of the collective. According to the aforementioned principles of biomedical ethics, the four underpinnings of medical ethics are 1. Autonomy, 2. Non-maleficence, 3. Beneficence, and 4. Justice, a cluster of norms for fairly distributing benefits, risks, and costs. The very first pillar is autonomy. You get to decide what is done to your body, not any technocrat or unelected member of a mob invoking the collective as his excuse, nor even some shadowy globalist organization funded by billionaire oligarchs, not even Costco or Walmart. Remember that quote by Giovanni Gentile? "Fascism is more properly called corporatism, for it is the merger of state and corporate power. Corporations don't get to determine what our rights are." To repeat the passage from A Short History of Ethics, the concept of the greatest happiness for the greatest number could be used to defend any paternalistic or totalitarian society. The elites stink. They hate it when we push their buttons. Help us to push their buttons by pushing our buttons, the like and subscribe buttons. Also, don't forget about thenewamerican.com. Think of the magazine less as a newspaper than as a newspaper. You know, like the Greek nous, knowledge. Note to self, multilingual Greek puns don't work.